Okay, good morning. It's on? Okay. Taf Kuf Lamed Chet, Hilchos Chol Hamoed. Yeah. This year's sponsor, the Ilay Nishmas, Orach Chaim ben Reb Shimon. Okay. Taf Kuf Lamed Chet, Kamen Yanim Hanikarim Davar Ha'aved. That's today's topic. Okay, which you already talked about a little bit before. Aleph. So a person already turned over his olives, or he has his wine in a pit. Basically, when they needed to, part of the process with their olives is they would, at a certain point, they would turn it over. And when they turned it over, they needed to finish the process, or the olives would go bad. Also, the wine, they collected it after they squeezed it from the grapes and poured into a pit or a bowl, which is also called the bor. If they didn't put it in the chavit or the barrels or whatever they needed to do, the wine would spoil. So this is basically, you started the process and you can't stop in the middle. Right? It would be a davar ha'aved, you're going to lose. The era ones, and something happened, some kind of an onus, something came up, whatever family, whatever the issue came up, you got sidetracked, you had to take care of it, Erev Yom Tov, but you started the process before Yom Tov, before the holiday. Oh, sheshachach, you innocently just forgot to finish taking care of the job. You started the process, sometimes you get distracted, sometimes you have to actually wait a few hours to begin the next phase of the process. Or you're just lazy, but it wasn't intentional. It was shaya savr shaya cholishat lachar regel. Or you thought you'd take care of it. You have plenty of time to take care of it. Let's say after the regel, like it's not going to spoil. And then your friend tells you, you started the process. It's going to go bad if you don't finish. Whatever the case is, as long as we're not talking about intentional mazid, you completely saved it. V'lo asa kodem regel, and it wasn't done before the holiday. Mi'achar shehu davar ha'aved. Now, since it's a davar ha'aved, zolef v'gomer. You can pour it into the next stage, do what you need to do, and finish the process. Zapet et chaviot, or you can place tar over the barrels, whatever is needed. Bein ktanot, bein gedolot, whether they're big and whether they're small. Just happens to be here, you see big or small, so the Mishnah Berurah points out one of the principles that we mentioned the other day was that the purpose of mentioning big and small is the smaller ones means it's much less effort, and it's still mutter, but it's just going to be a small loss. And if it's a bigger barrel, it's going to be a lot more wine or olive oil, a bigger job, but the loss is going to be much greater. So, okay. Anyways, so you see it's mutter, and it's a little bit comparable, proportional. The gaf, hechaviot, or you seal them. You seal the barrels. Kedarko below shinoi. So since you're doing it, a davar ha'aved, you're allowed to do it regularly without a shinoi. Haga. Okay. V'hu adin diyachol letakin hechaviot, koshram ba'akalim. And also, if you need to, you can fix the chains or whatever to tie them to be together. Aval yechavein melachto b'moed, but you can't have kavanah to save it for the moed. Aliyasa hakol kodam hamoed im yodea sheyitzarich b'moed. But just plan ahead, and if you know you're going to do it before the moed, if you know it needs to get done. V'chein shole pishtano, you're also allowed to remove the flax mina mishra from where they're soaking. V'chol kayotze bezeh midavar ha'aved. Whenever, if it's going to be a davar ha'aved. And basically this is the principle, whenever it's a davar ha'aved, you're allowed to finish it. Ubilvad shelo yechavein melachto b'moed. But you can't have kavanah to save it for that. Okay. We'll see more about this later on. Okay, bet. Mutar lahachnis perot mipnei haganavim im enam b'makom hamishtamer. So again, similarly, you're allowed to move your peyrot. If you're afraid, ganavim are going to steal from it. It's not in a very secure place. Umiu yasa betzina. But you're moving it, and it's a bit of a tircha to move your merchandise, your fruit, your produce. So what do? Just do it bitsina. Okay? Kegon shiachnisim balayla. Like, do it at nighttime when no one's around and no one's really looking. Ve'imu davar sheyesh bo pirsum balayla yoter mibayom. But let's say if you do it at nighttime, it's going to be even more obvious for other people to see. Kegon shetzarich lachniso be'avukot uvekolot. Like if at nighttime, then you guys are dealing with big torches so you can see what's going on, and that's going to be very flashy and everyone's going to see, or there's going to be a lot of noise or screaming. Yachnisim bayom. So then just do it during the day, whatever, it's okay. Just, you want to do you don't want it to make it as little fanfare as possible. As less obvious as possible. Haga. V'im i'efshar la'sotan ki'im b'farhesya. But if you have no choice, and it's just going to be done b'farhesya, Hakol shari b'davar ha'aved, and everything's mutter because it's a davar ha'aved. So even though it's a davar ha'aved, we see it's mutter. You can do it kedarko below shinui, and you prefer not to do it before hasiya, but if you have to, you're allowed to. Gimel asur lahasiya mamono me'ir le'ir im lo b'shvil davar ha'aved. Now you're not allowed to move your belongings from one city to another unless it's for a davar ha'aved. But if it's for a davar ha'aved, then you're allowed to. So we kind of saw this a little bit before, previously, and we mentioned if it's not a davar ha'aved, even from one chatzar to another chatzar, it's asur. But to do it from, and certainly it would be from ear to ear. Here, it's mentioning the Mishnah Berurah, Orach Chaim, others point out, it's stressing over here that even though it's a me'ir le'ir, even though normally chatzar lechatzar is aser, here even a city to another city, or a state to another state would be mutter if it's a davar ha'aved. Okay, so you get two extremes of when it's aser and when it's mutter, depending if it's davar ha'aved or not. Daled hayulot te'enim shetuchim basade leyabesh v'yareh me'amatar. So now you have figs that are out drying. And you're afraid if you leave them out there and don't do anything about them, they're going to get wet from the dew. It could be rain, whatever the case is. Mutar lechalpotam bekash afilu chipui av. Then what are you allowed to do? Because again, we're talking about davar ha'aved. You can even do a malacha gemura, like ripping out tevin or straw or weeds, branches, whatever you need from the ground. That's Mishnah Berurah points that out. It's muchach from the Yerushalmi, the Ritva, v'chulei, that you're allowed to cover it up because you're doing that in order to protect it from the rain. Nowadays we'll probably just use a plastic tarp, but whatever you want to use, it's mutter even if it would be a malacha because it's davar ha'aved. Okay. Hey. Mi sheyesh lo sechora. She'im lo yavchenu mimata v'mala titkalkel. Let's say you have your produce merchandise and you need to move it around. Let's say you can't always have, I'm not exactly familiar, but obviously they didn't have refrigerations back then, but you can't always have the same produce on the top and on the bottom. You have to rotate them a little bit, or the ones that are exposed perhaps, or the opposite, will get spoiled. But bottom line, if it's a davar ha'aved, you're allowed to move it around, and right, so the food doesn't perish, and you're allowed to do it during Chol Hamoed. Okay. So Pischei Tshuva, I'll just points also Shem the Shevet HaLevi and Rav Shlomo Zalman and Shmona Shabbos Kilchasa. They point out that if you have a store with merchandise that are not perishables, just because it's convenient, you can't go on Chol Hamoed and now reorganize all your shelves and all your merchandise. If it's a davar ha'aved, you're allowed to, but not for. Okay.
Right, because it doesn't belong to you, right? Because
even if it belongs to you, you can't save it for Chol Hamoed to do it, unless it's davar ha'aved. Okay, Vav. Hamechavein melachto. This is where we started in the beginning a little bit, the Ramah in particular. The Vav. Hamechavein melachto v'hinicha lamoed v'asa'a b'moed. Now, here you have a guy who b'mezid, he set it aside. He knew the week before Yom Tov he had things he needed to take care of, and he was able to do it before Yom Tov, but he set it aside. He'll have more free time on Chol Hamoed. So he wanted to do it during Chol Hamoed, and he did it on Chol Hamoed. So then, Beis Din ma'abdin ota mimenu umafkirin ota lakol. So Beis Din takes all his profit from what he did, and he makes it hefker for anyone to now take his profit as a punishment. Haga, v'im ha'oseh melechas acherim she'yefshar lakanso. Let's say you did a malacha for somebody else. Like you took their clothing, kagon chayat, or sofer shoseh melechet acherim. So then, like you're a tailor, you're a sofer. So then, on someone else's property, hayu mishamtin lei, then they would put him in cherim, o malkin oto, or they would give him lashes. Okay, v'i mate, and if he dies, so he made his profit, loik nesubo acharav. So then Beis Din doesn't have to give a knas on his children. The children can take the money and use it. Umutar lo la'asota imhu davar ha'aved. And this is really the same. It's kind of obvious for the son, or originally for the father. If it would be a case of a davar ha'aved, so then, for now, if it would be a case of a davar ha'aved, then it would be mutter. Okay, that's if you weren't able to do it before. So here, the son gets it on Chol Hamoed, so now it's a davar ha'aved, so then certainly for him, he's allowed to continue.
Well, the same.
Okay.
Again.
Yeah, whatever the issue is. I mean, if it's davar ha'aved and you weren't able to, the only time it's a problem is if you have it in mind and you save it for Chol Hamoed, and any time when it's not, you don't have it in mind to save it, and it's a davar ha'aved, then that's when it's mutter. Alright, let's go on. Taf Kuf Lamed Tet. Dine haschora b'chol hamoed. So buying and selling. Doing business. Aleph. Kol sachora. Any kind of merchandise. Transaction. Asura afilu kol shehu. You're not allowed to, even for just a little bit. Bein liknot, bein limkor. It doesn't matter if you're buying or you're selling. Both are going to be a problem. Vafilu im hilva ma'ot. Even if you lent somebody money before Yom Tov, the deal was, you basically lent him money in order that later on you're going to come back and get merchandise for your business. We're not talking about Orach Chaim for eating. That wouldn't be a problem at all. We're talking about you want to get the merchandise, but you didn't buy it yet. You didn't set aside the merchandise and say this is yours and you're going to go pick it up during Chol Hamoed. That's going to come up later. Here, basically, you gave him money and you know that later on you're going to be able to get in return merchandise, but you didn't buy specific, there's no kinyan yet, happened yet, anything like that. So then, to pick it up on Chol Hamoed, you can't go on Chol Hamoed to now start picking what you're going to get. Unless they're not there during, you won't be able to get it during Chol Hamoed. The yayin or the schora, whatever you want to get, won't be there anymore. It's going to sell out. So it's going to be moved to a different location, and you won't be able to get it. The havale davar ha'aved. So then, that's a case of davar ha'aved. Im lo yelech b'chol hamoed l'mkomam v'yitba'em. If you don't go there now, while they're available, and go get them in return for the loan or for the money that you lent him. So then it would be okay. Okay. So generally, buying and selling for yourself or for business is aser, unless it's for the moed or it's going to be davar ha'aved. And Chazal made a takana because of Torach. It's okay, tircha and okay. Bir Alaka points out that also if you're going to do it, even just hiring a goy to go buy it for you, if it's aser for you to buy it for yourself, it's also aser to have your goy, a shliach, buy it for you as well. And he also points out that if you bought it beforehand and you just want to pick it up on Chol Hamoed, it wouldn't be a problem of schora of a kinyan, because you already made your full kinyan before, but you still might have a problem of picking up merchandise if it's not for Orach Chaim, just like we learned before a couple times, ear to ear, chatzer l'chatzer, it could still be a problem of picking up merchandise during Chol Hamoed. Okay. So there's two issues. One is carrying merchandise, transporting merchandise, and the other one is having the actual kinyan. Okay. Let's go on. In the Haggah of Aleph. Mihu. Now, what if you're going to have a large profit on Chol Hamoed? And you have this great opportunity. So then, the Ramah points out, and this is, well, let's keep reading. You're allowed to sell Bitsina in private. V'yotzi l'simchas Yom Tov yoter mima shehayadaita lahotzi. So then just spend more than you were going to on Chol Hamoed. So again, if you have this chance to make a nice profit, just do it quietly. It's mutter. And just take some of the money. You don't have to spend all the money. Just a little bit from the profit that you make and spend more. Jewelry, steak, whiskey, wine, whatever, fruit, maybe some activity for during the day perhaps. So you just spend more and that applies to both. Spend more or for Yom Tov or for Hamoed. You're going to see this a couple times. It's either one. It doesn't have to only be for Yom Tov. It could be also spent money on Chol Hamoed itself. And then it's mutter. Happens to be a machloka in Rishonim. If it's, can you do it b'fer hesia or b'tzina? Do you have to spend on it? Not spend on it. But this is the formulation how the Ramah follows, and this is the halacha both according to the Ramah, Mishnah Berurah, Orach Chaim, v'chulei.
And today's buying and selling on the telephone.
It's the same. So let's get to that after we read a little bit more. Bet. Mi shehilva lachavero ma'ot. Now a person lends money to somebody. Mutar latovo b'chol hamoed ligbot ma'otav. You're allowed to go to collect money from someone. It's a loan, and you're allowed to collect money back. That's not a problem. And it goes without saying, kol shekain, to non-Jews, you're allowed to go and collect money back. So again, anytime you want to collect money from a loan, that's okay, but it's not called business. And so the Chazal weren't asked for that. Okay. And you're even allowed to go to another city to collect the money. It's not part of business. And if you need to, you can even go to a Beis Din to take care of it, and that's okay. And if it's a non-Jew or someone who's not trustworthy, kol shekain you're allowed to because of davar ha'aved on top of it. And even if it be schora, we learned even for schora you're allowed to go if it might be a davar ha'aved. Okay, Gimel. So you sold merchandise before the Moed. So you sold the merchandise before the Moed. You gave it to him, you just didn't collect the money yet. So now, can you collect the money on Chol Hamoed? Do you look at that as that part of the transaction, or do you look at it as, now it's like a loan, for all intents and purposes? So he says, Yesh Misha Oser, there's an opinion that says it's Aser. So the first opinion says it's only going to be mutter if it's a davar ha'aved, because this is the completion of the transaction, and all schara is aser midarabanan. Okay, v'linear, but the Shulchan Aruch writes, this is his opinion. Shekevan shezakaf alav hamaot bechovo kodem hamoed. So this is the second opinion he brings. And he says, but now, since it's true, it started out as a transaction, but now you're basically left with nothing but, he owes you the money. It's basically the same as a loan. So he says, halachically for Hilchas Chol Hamoed, it has the din of a halva, and therefore, you're allowed to go collect it from him on Chol Hamoed. Even if he lives there, and you can always go to him the next week. Hagav, v'chen, mutar likbo b'mishpat b'shvil chovotav v'mutarim litboa. And the Ramah says, any time that it's mutar to collect, if needed, you're allowed to go to a Beis Din. V'chen mutar lasot zekifa im chovotav b'moed k'dei lehavtichan. The kol zeh bichlal davar ha'aved v'shari. And you're also allowed to do zekifa with let's say he has a numerous chovot, or it's just unclear how much he owes you, you're allowed to make like a summary, and you agreed exactly how much he owes you, because this way, or if it's unclear how much he owes you, this makes it so that it's clear and much easier to collect afterwards. So even doing this is also davar ha'aved and mutter. In general, when it comes to writing, if it's a davar ha'aved, you're allowed to, and if it's not, then you're not. Okay, let's do another one. Daled. Okay, now let's say you want to do some business, and if you don't sell it today, the value is going to go down. The customers are going to disappear. I don't know. It's not the season for shopping afterwards. So then you're going to end up losing from the actual keren. You might not sell it at all. So then mutar l'mochra, you're allowed to sell it on Chol Hamoed. Aval im lo yifsid me'at keren. But if you're not worried about the value going down and losing from the price of the object, then you're not allowed to. Umikol makam hu be'inyan she'im yimkarenu ata. However, he does say, if there's going to be a big profit, and with this big profit, then you're going to be able to spend more money on Yom Tov, mutar limkor, then you are allowed to. V'li nira, Shulchan Aruch writes again, his opinion, this heter of you're going to make a bigger profit and then spend extra on Chol Hamoed or Yom Tov, that only applies to someone who doesn't have a lot of money. So he's a little bit stingy with himself. Yom Tov, he's not going to spend so much on Yom Tov. But now that he has more money to spend, he's going to spend more on the holiday. That's who this heter is for. But someone who's well off, and he could spend whatever he wants on Yom Tov or Chol Hamoed, but he doesn't want to spend so much. So then we don't allow him to use this heter just so that he can make a bigger profit to spend a little more. And so this issue is a machloket in Achronim. Many are matir, and consider most of us, unless you're really, really well off, then most of us nowadays are considered within this category where it's mutter to rely on. Okay, maybe we'll do one more. Hey. Something that's not normally available after the moed. Kegon, sfinot, shairot, shabal, you have ships or caravans that come through the city, or shehem avakshim, let's say, or they've been there but now they're about to leave. Umachru bezol olaku biyoker, and you can get a really good deal by buying or purchasing right now. So then mutar likno v'limkor, you're allowed to buy and sell from them. Afilu shalol etzarech tashmish alatzatzachr listaker, even though it's not for yourself, you just want to use it for business, because it's a davar ha'aved. So too, if you have these set fairs where they sell things and they just come a couple times a year, you've been allowed to travel from city to city, because these don't happen all the time, and now's your chance. But if you have this fair every single week, then you can just wait another week. That's not a heter to buy and sell during Chol Hamoed. That's not called davar aved. You could just go the next week. So that's not called davar ha'aved. So this person just goes and he buys and sells on a daily basis, and for him, if he holds on to the merchandise an extra week, again, whatever that case would be, if it's a case where if you're going to hold on to it and you're going to lose money, so then that's called a davar ha'aved. But if it's, but normally for a store, you can hold on to it and it won't make a difference unless you have one of these specific cases. All right, stop.